Hello, everybody. My name is Ezra, and welcome to my podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about college students and their eating habits, and more specifically on how to better maintain a healthy diet while handling a school load as well. With me, I have a very special guest, Dr. Erica Henn. Dr. Henn, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely, and thank you, Ezra, for having me on your podcast. So I am, as Ezra said, I have a doctorate in sports sciences from the University of Wolverhampton, and I teach here at Temple Basic and Advanced Exercise Physiology.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Dr. Henn. All right, so the goal of this interview is to help inform students listening about the importance of how important their routines are to their stress levels, and how all that can influence your diet, and hopefully provide some realistic ways to make healthier choices. Many college students experience irregular eating schedules due to demanding classwork, multiple late nights studying, and just work overall. I myself have experienced this and seen how hard it is to maintain a proper eating schedule throughout busy days. And it also makes it harder that a lot of students heavily rely on dining hall food or cheaper fast food options, since they'll have less spending money overall. There was also a study from 2022 called The Association of Night Eating Habits with Health-Related Quality of Life in University Students. This study found that frequent night eating was linked to lower health-related quality of life. The authors conclude that night eating can contribute to physical and psychological strain, potentially increase the risk of chronic disease if done long term. So with all of that being said, my first question for you, Dr. Henn, is do you think from a physiology standpoint, irregular eating habits or late snacking could influence someone's metabolism and energy levels throughout the day?
Absolutely, and I'm glad that you brought up that study. So when we talk about metabolism, right, there is definitely a fueling component and then sort of a hormonal component. So when we're talking about the fuel itself, one of the reasons that you hear so many guidelines saying we need a diverse diet is because often our certain body systems rely on certain types of fuel or are more efficient with certain types of fuel. So for example, our brain really prefers glucose as a substrate, a carbohydrate substrate. So if someone, for example, is on a low carb diet, or to your point about having other restrictions, like I'm thinking of the dining halls, or even if someone has some sort of food allergy or some sort of otherwise either a religious or a personal choice that restricts their eating, those are all ways that could end up giving them some sort of altered diet, right? So if they're on some sort of low carb diet, that means they may, for example, experience brain fog, or they may have trouble creating memories or being able to retrieve that information, which for students, obviously very important.
Yeah.
The hormonal component that we see could be something like, for example, cortisol, which is one of our stress hormones. So if a student is having, as students sometimes do, right, will have a very stressful week because they, for example, are having a lot of exams, maybe it's midterms, maybe stuff at their job is really busy, so they're feeling pressured to try to get their homework done. They're staying up late, they're getting up early. They have a really difficult schedule, so routine eating isn't possible.
Yeah.
All of these are going to change the release of the hormones, and typically in a negative way will change the release. And sometimes if we go long enough stretches without eating, our body can start to perceive that we may be in a starvation state. So it will start to change the hormones that are released. And in fact, it will say, oh, we're eating anything at all. I need to store that as either fat or as some sort of other long-term storage mechanism of these fuels so that I can make sure that we survive, which is a great short-term mechanism if we are hunter-gatherers in the jungle, right? But for these sorts of situations where it's just stressful being alive in sort of a 20th century way, those can really impact in a negative way our function, our day-to-day function.
A little more on that. I was curious to hear a little more how someone's nutrition throughout the day can impact the someone's brain power. I know something that when I took your class last year that you emphasis heavy to eat before taking an exam. And I wanted to hear more about how that can affect a student's studying and recollection of what they hear in class.
Absolutely, and there's definitely some supporting articles and information I can send you that you can share with your listeners as well.
Of course.
So with our brain really preferring glucose as a carbohydrate, when we want certain parts of our brain, like the hippocampus, et cetera, to be helping us store memories and to create what we'll call like long-term memories, those require fuel, right? There needs to be fuel to create ATP, to power these action potentials, or to power some of these other electrical signals and storage systems. So if we do not have sort of consistent fueling throughout the day in, again, like a balanced way, because even though our brain prefers carbohydrates, at rest, our body prefers fats.
Yeah.
So, these different fuels for different sources, right? Different also activities if people are active, different sports, right? Different energy systems. So if we are not being adequately fueled moving into either these activities or, again, something like studying or taking a test where we have to create memories and then recall information, that will prevent us from being able to do that. So very important to not only be eating regularly, but being able to eat things that have vitamins in them. So again, sort of circling back to this dining hall point or fast food point, if somebody is eating regularly, but their options don't have sort of those complete nutrition that our brains and body need. So for example, not enough iron means we can't make enough blood cells, right? Which means we can't transport oxygen, which means we're going to feel fatigued.
Yeah.
So there's many examples of those sorts of nutrition deficiencies really affecting us on a metabolic level, and then will start to affect our overall feeling and well-being.
Right. Well, I have one more question for you today, and I want to ask, what practical advice would you maybe give to a student who is trying to work around these hectic schedules and maintain their regular eating habits?
Absolutely. I think if possible, a little planning ahead can go a long way.
Yeah.
I think in my experience, not just personally, but with students, when people are pressed for time, that is when they sometimes feel that they have to make a not ideal choice, or a choice they wouldn't make if they had more time.
Right.
And I also know you and I have talked separately about how sometimes age and maturity of our brains and being able to have different experiences with discipline, right? Those can really factor in as well. So it might be easier for a senior in college or someone who's maybe coming back to college after having worked in the workforce, so they're a little bit older, to make some of these disciplined choices and to think ahead for themselves. But our brains don't really reach maturity until 26, 27, 28. So for maybe a freshman who's used to having all these kind of guidelines at home with their families, potentially of having this experience of, well, I go to high school and I come home and I do my homework and I eat dinner and I don't have to worry about where some of those things are coming from. Right. It may be a little bit more difficult for them to find discipline around this topic. So I think that would be my first advice, is just a little bit of preparation. Can you pack an apple in your bag? Can you pack, think a little bit ahead for yourself? Plan to put your, healthy Panera order in ahead of time, so you don't just grab the cookie, while you're waiting in line. And then I think just sleep and making sure that you find some time to activate your parasympathetic nervous system and relax a little bit instead of being always in stress mode, so that your hormones can kind of balance and regulate and give you appropriate feelings of fullness and cues to eat.
Right. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for coming today, Dr. Hen. That's all I have for you guys. And I want to give you a special thanks, Dr. Hen, for being here. I really appreciate it. Hope you guys got some insight on this one.